Hello and welcome to the Poke Report. I'm your host, Alex Dusky. Today, I am joined by Jace Andrews and Karsten Melton, who have followed along with Cowboy and Big 12 baseball all season. We have a great show for you today, as the teams are about halfway through conference play. We will dive into all 9 baseball teams and their performances up to this point, in addition to some postseason predictions. Don't go away. Let's get right into the analysis. Jace and Karsten have attended most of OSU's games calling play-by-play, so let's start with the Cowboys. OSU just finished a 4-game homestand with a Bedlam Series win and a win against Wichita State. On the season, the team is 24-9 and 7-2 in the conference. The Cowboys' strength is definitely its pitching core, specifically junior Justin Campbell, who is one of 45 players named to the Golden Spikes watch list. Jace, what have you liked from Campbell this season?
Well, Campbell has been the pitcher that all of Oklahoma State expected to have the first 2 years he was here. He's been great with strikeouts. He's ranked number 9 in all of college baseball with strikeouts this year, and he's really just been kind of that all-around starter. He has right now a 4-1 record, along with, and more importantly, a 3.40 ERA. So he's kind of been that guy to kind of be the reliable pitcher for the Cowboys.
Yeah, you talk about, those 73 strikeouts. He's been really good at locating his pitches really well, hasn't he?
Yes, he's been very, very good. I mean, when you talk about 73 Ks, you got to locate it perfectly on that pinpoint, and something that comes with locating your pitches properly is not allowing a long ball. And he's done that very well this year. He's only allowed 6 home runs on the year, and that includes a 3-home run game against Kansas State that he gave up this past 2 weeks ago. So if you take out that one game where he gave up 3 home runs, he's only given up 3 home runs the entire year, which means 3 home runs on 44 innings pitched, which is just insane for a pitcher like him, and that's really a main reason why he's named to that Golden Spikes watch list.
I don't think if you mentioned this yet, but I believe that Justin Campbell is the only Big 12 pitcher to pitch a full 9-inning game.
I think you may be right. He does have that complete game.
He did throw that complete game against Texas. I was there calling it with Grayson.
It was Kansas.
It was the Kansas game.
Kansas. I was there as well.
9 innings, only 3 hits allowed, 2 earned runs, which was just on that 1 home run, and 1 walk with 9 strikeouts. That's one of, I believe it was his second career complete game here at Oklahoma State, and it was one of his best games I think we've seen him pitch.
Well, and that can kind of lead you into the versatility of Justin Campbell, because over his past 6 starts, 5 of them, he's gone over 100 pitches.
Now, Campbell isn't the only great pitcher on the team. Karsten, tell me a little bit about some of the other Cowboys on the mound.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously you're going to have an ace, and that is Justin Campbell, obviously. But another guy who I think has been doing really well for Oklahoma State is Bryce Osmond. The sophomore out of Jinx has done really well, is basically kind of settling in as a number 2 guy. He's 2-1 with a 4.19 ERA with 44 strikeouts, which is second behind Justin Campbell on Oklahoma State. But his highlight was definitely that game against Vanderbilt when he started. He didn't get the win. It was a no decision. But 5 innings pitched, giving up 3 runs on 4 hits with 8 strikeouts. He has been really well as a number 2 guy for Oklahoma State.
Well, and you talk about just this past weekend when he went 7 innings almost against OU. He pitched a great and probably I think that may have been the best pitcher of the weekend. I mean, it was a rough weekend for the Cowboys in terms of giving up offensive runs, but he pitched very well.
Oh, yeah.
And the pitching for the Cowboys is stellar. They're second in the Big 12 in ERA, just behind Texas, and they have the best strikeouts per 9 innings in the Big 12 with 10.9 strikeouts per about a game of baseball.
Absolutely.
So OSU has a lot of underclassmen power, specifically freshmen like Zach Earhart and Rock Riggio. Jace, what is the future like for this Cowboy baseball team?
So when you're a perennial team that plays well every single year, you're going to have these top-ranked prospects. And Rock Riggio and Zach Earhart are these guys. They're the freshman phenoms, I like to call them. They have been really electric, and I think that may be their best quality, is they came into Oklahoma State with the confidence of a fifth-year senior. They came in here acting like they own the place, and I kind of like it. I kind of do. I mean, for them total, they have 31 RBI, and these guys have combined to bring a crazy amount of energy to every single game.
Absolutely. The one I will think back to is the the Bedlam game Saturday night against OU. ESPNU, it's national televised. Cowboys down big. Rock Riggio hits 2 bombs, especially the one in the bottom of the 8th to tie the game at 7. It's those kind of plays that are going to make you bring all of this incredible energy to the team.
And the best part is, it's not just their offense. Their fielding is also stellar.
Absolutely,
2
yes.
errors combined over them with 168 chances between them.
Now, we do want to mention that Tuesday night in the game against Wichita State, early on, Rock did get hit by a pitch in his wrist. I don't know which one, and we don't know what injury he has, but it is important to note that he could be out for a while.
Yeah, from the looks of it, it looked like it could be a very serious injury, and it sucks for Rock as a kid because he's probably going to want to play summer baseball this summer, wherever he goes, and getting hit in the wrist like that can really put a damper on it. And there's a chance that it could be broken, and if it's broken, that could really take him out for the rest of the season for the Cowboys.
Well, hopefully we hope that Rock heals well and that it's hopefully not too big of an injury. But like you guys said, he's one of the main underclassmen on this team. But a team is never complete without upperclassmen leadership. Karsten, who do you think the team's top leaders are this season?
Well, you look at all these upperclassmen, and the first name that comes to mind is Jake Thompson. I mean, Jake Thompson has been absolutely dynamite, batting .328 with 5 home runs, 31 RBIs. He's played in 33 games. He's a guy who a lot of the underclassmen are going to look to. And David Mendham as well, who was second on the team in batting average, right behind Jake Thompson with a .316. He only got 3 bombs and I believe 23 RBI. So it's not the overpowering stats you could say from like these upperclassmen, but it's these energy that they also bring and the knowledge that they bring as well.
Well, and especially one of the you didn't mention, Nolan McLean.
Yes.
He has been a really good leader this season. He's had his struggles of his own, but I've really liked the way the Cowboys have used him on the mound in the past couple games. I've liked what they've seen with that, and hopefully they continue that.
He won the Bedlam game, right?
Technically, he was the pitcher who got the win because he came in the 7th, pitched that inning with 3 strikeouts on his absolute pestering fastball, really, really good. But yeah, I think he did get the win in that game.
All right, well, moving on to the other teams in the Big 12. Let's take a look at our neighbors down in Norman, the Sooners. They've caused some issues for the Cowboys, giving OSU their only 2 losses of the season, one of them being this past weekend in Bedlam. Jace, I know you attended all 3 of the Bedlam games this weekend. What did you see from the Sooners?
Well, the Sooners can hit. I mean, that's just that's something we obviously saw. They had 8 runs in that first game, 7 runs in the second. They didn't do too hot on Sunday, but those first 2 games really showed. Along with the game in Tulsa, where they showed out again. I think, 6 runs in that game? So they really hit very well, especially against the Cowboys. And a lot of that starts with some power from Peyton Graham, who leads it with 9 home runs. He's had a really good season, along with Blake Robertson, who we'll talk about a little bit more in just a second. But his average is really putting the team up. But the problem with them is their pitching. They cannot pitch very well at all. I mean, just over the past 5 starts, it's really crumbled down, especially OSU giving up 7 and 8.
Looking at the Saturday night Bedlam game that Karsten mentioned that was on ESPNU, that game went 4 hours and 1 minute. It saw a total of 14 pitching changes as well. So it was an even 7-7 on both teams with those pitchers.
Yeah, their pitching is struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to have struggling pitching, but you really need some players who can hit, and they do have a lot. And, you mentioned Peyton Graham and Blake Robertson. Don't forget guys like Tanner Treadaway, the redshirt senior. Maybe he's only got 1 home run, but when you're still batting .308 and you've got plenty of hits, you're getting on base, you're giving your team more opportunities to score.
Well, I think something that OU liked to see was this past Tuesday when they beat Texas Tech, and Robertson got his first home run of the year.
Yes.
He's really been the key to OU's success. He has 2 triples, and over the year he has 8 stolen bases, so he has some electric speed. And I really think wherever this guy goes, the team is going to go with him because every time he seems to get hits, it seems like OU propels with that.
I mean, they took home the game against Texas Tech. He was 5 for 6 in that game against Texas Tech. It was absolutely incredible.
Well, I'm pretty sure OU had 2 guys with 5 hits in that game this past Tuesday.
I believe you're right.
Continuing down I-35, TCU is up next. The Horned Frogs have some impressive wins this season, most recently their 7-5 victory over Texas in Austin. Karsten, what are your thoughts on TCU?
They're a solid team. They were ranked in the top 25 last week. Unfortunately, they dropped down after, losing that series to Texas, which is still respectable. They took a game from the Longhorns. Unfortunately, Tuesday night, they took an L to Dallas Baptist, who's another really, really solid team. But this is another team that probably is going to make the tournament, I would think.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, they lost 2 out of 3 to Texas. big series this weekend, though, as Texas Tech comes to town.
Yeah, I think this team is all around just a great team. They got 5 players batting over 300, and their pitching is averaging, they're about the number 5 team in the Big 12. So it's not great, not amazing, but they're about average. But unfortunately, they just seem to be just like all these other Big 12s, up and down. They've had the highest of highs, but they've also had the lowest of lows.
I mean, you can see this with their record. They are 10-4 at home, 5-1 at neutral sites. That's a 15-5 combined record, 6-7 on the road. That's not going to get it done.
Well, and interesting to note, in just 2 weekends, OSU will get them here. So we'll see how that series
that
goes.
should be really good for Oklahoma State then, because they're not a great team away from home. So it should be. Last year, Oklahoma State couldn't really get anything done against TCU when they went to Fort Worth. This year, I think the Cowboys will be able to reverse that.
And then one player I want to mention before we move on to the next team, Tommy Sacco. He's really been a great hitter. He's sitting at 373 average, and he started every single game. And the big thing is, of his 44 hits, 19 of them are extra bases. He has a ton of just contact in that bat. I don't think he has more than 15 strikeouts on the year. Along with, he just is a leader. He's here a senior, and in a team with a lot of freshmen, it's great to have that senior leadership.
Another team that the Cowboys have not yet faced off against are the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. They are 27-9 on the season. The 2 teams won't face off until the second week of May, so OSU has some time to prepare. But Jace, what are some problems that Tech could cause for OSU?
So Tech, I like to call them the offensive juggernaut of the Big 12. They lead the NCAA in walks with 217. They have the 23rd overall in batting average, and they're 3rd in hits with 378. Along with, they're the number 1 team in runs scored over the year, which is really, really good. Their pitching is a bit rough, but, I mean, when you have an offense like them, it doesn't really mean that much. But they do have a really good ace in Brandon Birdshill. He has a 1.98 ERA, and he's 5-1 with 70 strikeouts, which puts him up there around Justin Campbell area. They're a great team, and they've got some really good pop.
Oh, yeah, they got a lot of pop, especially, you look at some guys, you got Owen Washburn, Kurt Wilson as well, but the big one is Jace Jung.
Yeah, Jace, my brother from another mother. Well, I wish. But following in the footsteps of his brother Josh Jung, who is now in the Texas organization and looks to be hopefully in the major leagues by the end of the year, but he gets on base half the time. He has an OBP of 521, and he's 3-3 of stolen bases, and they have a flair for the clutch. They have so many walk-offs this year. I think they have 6 games where they've scored the winning run in the 9th inning or later, and 4 of those were walk-offs. They're just an all-around great team, and they look to be primed for a big run here in a couple months.
So, you just said your brother from another mother. Do you think you could compete with Jace Jung? Let's put you up in the lineup and try and out do better than him?
Well, I'm just going to bat like I'm Jose Altuve and have the smallest box ever, so hopefully they just won't be able to throw me a strike.
So
all
that's
right.
a no.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
The final top team in the conference is the Texas Longhorns, who are kind of an up-and-down team this season. Their strongest win definitely has to be over the Tennessee Volunteers last month, who were ranked number 1 but just recently lost to Tennessee Tech. That score was 3-1. Karsten, tell me what's worked and what hasn't worked for the Longhorns this season.
Well, I mean, we're feeling kind of like a broken record here with the Big 12. Yeah. It's just very inconsistent. I mean, they are ranked number 7, but they've had 2 separate stretches of just really poor performances. You look from March 6th to March 15th, they played 7 games, lost 5 of them. 1 to UCLA, 1 to Texas State, 2 to South Carolina, and 1 to the College of Charleston. And the only game at home was Texas State. Everything else was either neutral site or on the road. And then they lost 2 of 3 to Texas Tech, lost at home to A&M, and then lost 1 to OU. So it's a very inconsistent team. It feels like that gets into rough stretches. They leave a lot of players on base as well. They leave many runners on base.
Do you think, also I misspoke, the score of that Tennessee-Texas game was 7-2. Do you think that Texas is a team that plays up to their opponents and down to their opponents equally, or do you think they're just that inconsistent no matter the opponent?
I think they will be able to play up to an opponent. But for a 3-game stretch, I think they will have 1 down game, especially for a 3-game series. You saw it with TCU. They took 2 out of 3 from them, and So I think it's definitely a case of they will be able to play up to opponents. It just depends on if it is a 3-game series or not.
Well, and it's interesting because if you look at this team's talent, they're probably the best team in the Big 12.
Absolutely,
I mean, if you look
absolutely.
At just the power they have. They're the number 1 Big 12 team in batting average and in home runs, so put them right there at top in the batting category. They also have the number 1 in Big 12 ERA and have 3 pitchers with a sub-2 ERA. But I think we got to talk about the 2 Texas sluggers.
Absolutely.
Murphy Staley as crazy batting average, along with 10 home runs and an OPS over 1.2. And then this lineup is relentless because the next guy up, Ivan Melendez. I mean, you do not get a break with this Texas lineup.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you talked about Murphy. 430. He leads the team in batting average, and he's second in RBI. First is Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic, as they call him, batting 389 with 16 homers and 50 RBIs. I mean, it's absolutely incredible.
And he ranks 9th in the NCAA in slugging. 9th. He's going to hit the ball far.
So, you mentioned that his nickname's the Hispanic Titanic. Do you know if OSU players have any fun nicknames like that, Karsten?
I don't know for sure. Jace?
I don't know. I know Justin Campbell, when he used to bat last year, was called the American Shohei Ohtani, but unfortunately...
That's not very original.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not
very original, but
it's fun.
I'm sure there are.
Can you think of one if you were to pick a player right now and give him a fun nickname?
Well, Rock Riggio is Kevin Biggio's son. It seems like. I mean, they play so similarly. It's just Kevin Biggio 2.0, just Rock Riggio.
You just call Tranquil. You just like to call him Trank.
Yeah,
it's just a fun thing to call him right there.
I think that one's probably a good game.
Well, we've covered the top dogs in the conference, but there are still 4 other teams left to discuss. We're going to almost kind of rapid fire through these teams as if it's like a game. So, Jace, you'll be up first. 1 minute on the clock. Give me an overview of the Baylor Bears. Ready, set, go.
All right, so Baylor's an interesting team. On the year, they're sitting 16-16, so kind of very even. They got a great number 1 pitcher in Tyler Thomas. He has a 1.97 ERA, and he has 50 strikeouts on the year, which is very top-tier numbers. But the problem is they're just an okay team on the batting side. They only have 18 home runs, which some players in the NCAA can almost have by themselves. Jared McKenzie and Trey Richardson are both sitting at above 294. I think Richardson's at 294, and McKenzie is at 3. But this team has just had exactly what we've said for all the other Big 12 teams. Highest highs and lowest lows. But recently, they have been really struggling in conference play, especially this past weekend, getting swept by West Virginia, who is a very, very good surprise team of the Big 12. And I think Baylor is a good team. They kind of just need to find their role. They have some great pitchers, and they got a great closer who'll be playing in the Cape this season. And I really am excited to see where Baylor goes.
That was perfectly a minute. I'm going to applaud you for that. Karsten, can you do the same thing? You're up next talking about the Kansas State Wildcats. 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, it's the same thing as Baylor, essentially, because K-State is, I would say they're a much more inconsistent team. I mean, they're 15-16 overall, only 1-8 in conference play, so they rank near or even at the bottom. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Kansas State is currently dead last in the Big 12.
Yes.
So, I mean, they are also an inconsistent team. I mean, Dominic Johnson has had really good season, batting 392. Cole Johnson as well with 349. It's not been great pitching-wise. I mean, probably their best ERA. No one has a lower ERA than like a 3.29, which is not going to get it done in Big 12 play. So you want to be better if you're K-State. They've played good opponents. I just don't think they're going to be able to compete. It's just they're one of the teams that they have to be at the bottom, unfortunately.
Very nice. You had a little wiggle room there, so I'm going to take that. Before we go to Jace's next team, I want to preface this by saying we put West Virginia in the bottom 4 based on predictions for the latter half of the season. It's important to note that they are currently 5-1 in Big 12 play, leading the Big 12. So you would think, oh, well, they're not in the top 5. However, they have not played the big dogs like Oklahoma State, OU so far, and so that's why we put them down here. So, Jace, you're up next. You're going to talk about the Mountaineers. 1 minute. Let's go.
All right, so the Mountaineers, they're the Big 12's surprise team. They're 21-10 on the year, and they've really just kind of been a slugfest, but with not as much power. They have 5 guys batting over 300, which is an insane amount considering how poorly they did last year. I mean, OSU swept West Virginia at home last year, and it really wasn't close. They'll play again this weekend, so we'll see how that goes, and maybe make a better decision on where we see West Virginia going from here on out. I think West Virginia looks like they should be a good team. They have the key signs of being a team that can go far in the NCAA. But they haven't played those top dogs, so we can't basically predict whether or not what's going to happen. So they're going to have Oklahoma State to test themselves this weekend. They're going to have a Texas Tech series coming up in the latter half of the season, along with one against the big dogs, Texas. And that's the one where we're going to see a lot about if this West Virginia team is true or if it's just going to fall down the dumps.
Which is exactly what I said, so thank you for reiterating my point and making me feel good about my statement. So, Karsten, you have the last team, the Kansas Jayhawks. The floor is yours.
Well, I get the two worst teams in the Big 12, it looks like. Both teams from Kansas. This was a team I got to watch play in person, and they've got some pop as well. I mean, you're talking about Baylor and how they've got some pop and they're a little bit inconsistent. I mean, it's the same with Kansas. A 13-18 overall record is not going to get it done, especially they lost a series to New Orleans. They lost to Michigan State. Like, it's a lot of losses, right? But their big star player is definitely Maui Ahuna, batting .453 on the season with 5 homers and 33 RBI. He has been really good. Now, he was kind of shut down a little bit against Justin Campbell, which, let's be honest, everybody gets shut down against Justin Campbell. But Maui Ahuna's done good. Nolan Metcalf behind has also been really good, batting .315. 35 hits, 3 homers. Nobody in double digits in home runs. Maui Ahuna leads the team with 5 and with 33 RBI. So it's not as much offensive firepower, as you would want for a team.
I'm very impressed that you guys were both able to do 1 minute on every team. So hats off to you guys.
Good job,
We can't have a Big 12 baseball show without final conference predictions. While the Big 12 tournament is over a month away, it's never too early to make these predictions on how the season will turn out. So Karsten, why don't you start off with your predictions first? I want the regular season winner and the postseason winner, please.
Yeah, I think it'll be really close in the regular season. You've got 3 really good teams, right? Tech, Oklahoma State, Texas, and we'll see if West Virginia is good as well. Could make it 4. I have Texas Tech taking home the regular season crown by just a game because that last series against Oklahoma State, it's the second to last series. I think that could decide it. I think they can beat out Oklahoma State by a game for the regular season champ. And for the tournament, I'm going to go West Virginia. For the tournament. I think that they can get hot at the right time. And, when it's just a single game elimination, I think they can rise to the occasion. So I got West Virginia's tournament, Texas Tech regular season.
I think you're bringing up a good point is that, the tournament winner and the conference winner are typically very different teams because if you just get hot at the right time, and that's kind of cool to give West Virginia these opportunities.
Well, I remember Oklahoma State, they were an 8 seed going into the Big 12 tournament a few years ago, and they won the tournament and got into the NCAA tournament. They didn't do much after that, but
At least they made it.
They made it, and that's what matters, and it was an incredible run in Bricktown.
Jace, what are your thoughts?
So I'm going to agree with Karsten. I think Texas Tech is the overall winner in the Big 12. I'm going to say by 2 games just because I think that last series against Oklahoma State could go either way.
That's right. That's fair.
It's just going to be tough because I think I like our chances with Campbell, but I think Texas Tech's pitching is just a little more sound than ours going down.
They're such a good team, too.
It's really hard. And
it's
especially,
so tough.
Especially when you're an offensive juggernaut like that. There's just no in-between. You can't miss one pitch. Otherwise, one of the Jungs is going to not launch out at you. I mean, the past 5 years, they've had one.
It'll probably be a Griffin Dorshing-esque bomb
500
that goes 500 feet, yeah.
I will say, though, for the tournament, I'm going to go OSU. And because of that, I'm kind of going to contradict myself a little bit, but I think our pitching is deep. I think our pitching is a little bit deep, and I think we'll pitch the right people at the right times. Because we have the single best coach in the entire NCAA. Josh Holliday is the best coach, and it's not close. And he knows exactly where to put. And especially when you have Matt Holliday on your staff, he and Josh are just going to run this Big 12 tournament. And I think they're going to go in there, they're going to pitch the pitchers at the right time, and Campbell will be ready for that last game against West Virginia. And he'll win it.
It's important that you do talk about Oklahoma State's coaching because on the ESPN Plus broadcast, they're talking about we have Matt Holliday, we have Josh Holliday, we have Robin Ventura, all on our coaching team, which is what has allowed this Cowboy baseball team to be as successful as it is.
Well, and it's also just something really cool. I mean, you talk about having Josh and Matt, the 2 brothers, being on your coaching staff. I mean, Matt was recruited, and was going to sign to come here before going to the major leagues. Now you have Tom in the broadcast booth talking about his 2 sons every single game. And it's just such an interesting family dynamic that it's one thing that you cannot get in the rest of the NCAA. And I think that's something that makes viewers want to watch Oklahoma State because it's a family matter here at Oklahoma State, which is how Stillwater is.
The Cowboy family.
Exactly. The Cowboy family.
All right, well, it is finally time for NCAA tournament predictions. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go through the entire bracket, so let's just keep it to the 16 regional hosts. Jace and Karsten, I know you both have Tennessee as the top dog in your tournament. What are your predictions for the rest of the 15 hosts?
Yeah, I think Tennessee, even with that loss to Tennessee Tech, they're still the best overall team. Their pitching is insane. Their batting's insane. I looked on NCAA.com earlier today. There's not a single stat that they're below top 10 in, which is something that you don't see often. In fact, beating Vanderbilt and Ole Miss already, I think, in the SEC, I mean, those are probably the two other best teams in the SEC, and they really beat them out. Arkansas will be an interesting series. I think they haven't played them yet. But Arkansas is my 2. So I'll say Tennessee, Arkansas. We'll get our first Big 12 team at the 3. Virginia will go 4. Oklahoma State at 5.
Who's your
Texas
Big
will
12
get
team?
6. Big 12?
Yeah.
Texas Tech.
Okay.
Yeah, Texas Tech will be my 3. Virginia will be at the 4. Oklahoma State at 5. Texas at 6. Oregon State, one that we've seen power from recently, but kind of fallen off. And then Miami at 8. And Carson, I'll let you get to your first 8.
Yeah, my top 8 is a little bit similar, maybe in a different order. Obviously, Tennessee at number 1. I have Tech at 2. I switched them up, switched Tech and Arkansas 2 and 3, put the Razorbacks at 4. I have Texas moving up to number 4 as well. Yeah. And then Oregon State 5. I have a different orange and black OSU at 5. And then Oklahoma State I put 6. The Canes from Miami I've got 7, and then Virginia at number 8. So it's very similar, just a little bit moved.
Well, Miami is an interesting team because, I mean, they've had some good years at baseball, but the ACC has also usually been a pretty decent baseball conference.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of surprised with what they've done this season.
Absolutely.
So moving into my 9 through 16, my 9 is Vanderbilt. And being the 9, kind of crazy, I think they'll be in the College World Series because they are a really, really good team.
That Oklahoma State did beat.
Exactly. Well, that's why I say they're a good team, because it makes Oklahoma State look better. And I think they're a perennial all-star team every single year. You talk about Louisville right behind them, also a very good ACC team. And then a surprise team this year, Texas State. I have really liked what I've seen from the Texas State in San Antonio. They've been really, really playing well.
Absolutely.
You got Notre Dame, who's also been another ACC school. UCLA, another good baseball school, usually gets to the College World Series a good amount of time. Gonzaga at 14, which OSU played.
And
now
Gonzaga
won.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's a good team.
It's a good team. And then at 15, 16, I have Arizona and Georgia, but you could probably flip those either way. So I think there's a good shot for a lot of Southern baseball teams to be in the tournament.
There usually seems to be a large amount of Southern baseball teams we see. A lot of it from the SEC, but there's a lot more from the ACC this year than we're used to seeing.
What would you guys say is the strongest conference?
This year's the SEC.
I definitely think it's the SEC as well.
You have Ole Miss, you have Vanderbilt, and you have Tennessee at the top 3. And that's forgetting Arkansas.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the best conference, and I think second is probably Big 12 and ACC.
Okay.
And don't forget from the SEC, you've got Georgia and Florida, who are both good as well. You can't forget about either of them.
And Florida is one to go into a regional and maybe take it out.
Absolutely.
Because they're not gonna host, but they could definitely go in there and take it.
Even South Carolina, they took 2 from Texas as well in Columbia, so that's another really good SEC team. For the rest of my regionals, I have Notre Dame at 9. I think the Irish have been really good. They just moved up to the top 10. You've got Gonzaga at 10. They're really good. That's a really good baseball team that we've seen. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good baseball team that has come up in recent years. I got Louisville at 11, another good ACC team. Georgia 12, then UCLA. I have Texas State a little bit lower. I want them to be up high, but I have them a little bit lower. LSU, again, another SEC team. We can never forget about LSU. They're an incredible power in college baseball. I have them at 15. And then a little bit of a surprise, Southern Miss, who's ranked right now in the top 15. They're a really good team. I think they could surprise and maybe even host a regional.
See, I thought the same thing, but I think there is a little bit to say about blue bloodness in baseball.
Understandable.
And nothing against Southern Miss, but I doubt their regional hosting ability is up to par with LSU, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, all those other teams.
Correct, but we also both put Texas State in here.
Correct. That is true. That is true.
All right, before we end the show, real quick, Jace, who are the 2 teams you see in Omaha?
I'm probably going to say Tennessee. Oh, that's a tough one.
That's really
Tennessee
tough.
and Tech. Tennessee and Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, okay.
I think Tennessee's going to be really good, but I'm not saying Tennessee goes all the way.
Okay.
I'm going to say Arkansas could get there. And then a little bit of surprise, I'm going to have an ACC team in there. I think Virginia could get there. I think they're 2 really good teams that I think could get there. So I got the Razorbacks, I got the Hogs, and I got the Cavs.
Call the Hogs.
Got the Hogs and the Who's. That's what I got.
There's a lot of baseball still left to be played. So predictions could be very accurate or very inaccurate, and you'll just have to follow along.
Someone
see.
clip that in case we're really wrong, like we
Or
were
really
for the
right.
tournament.
That's true.
Well, we were really wrong for the tournament, so someone clip that.
So maybe
for
you'll be
us.
really right this time.
Jace. It's a we.
That's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Alex Dusky, joined by Jace Andrews and Karsten Melton. Have a great weekend. Be sure to support your Cowboy baseball team the rest of this season, and go Pokes!